The gunshot echoed through the dusty main street of Silver Creek, Wyoming Territory, 1878. As Tessa Daniels ducked behind a water trough, her heart pounding against her ribs. She hadn't expected to be dodging bullets within her first hour of arriving in this frontier town, but then again, nothing in her life had gone according to plan since her father's death 3 months ago. "Stay down, miss." A deep voice commanded as a tall figure in a worn leather duster vaulted over the trough beside her, Winchester rifle in hand. Dust clung to his stubbled jaw, and piercing green eyes assessed her quickly before he returned fire at the saloon across the street. "What's happening?" Tessa gasped, clutching her carpet bag tighter. "Seems Wiley Johnston takes exception to newcomers," the stranger replied, his voice steady despite the danger. "Especially pretty ones who arrive on the same day as the new schoolteacher." Tessa's eyes widened. "But I am the new schoolteacher." The man glanced at her, a brief smile crossing his face before another bullet splintered wood inches from their heads. "Well then, madam, welcome to Silver Creek. I'm Sheriff Grant Galloway." "Tessa Daniels," she replied automatically. Something in the sheriff's expression changed at her words. "Daniels, you say?" Before she could respond, more gunfire erupted and Sheriff Galloway pushed her lower behind the trough. "We need to get you somewhere safe. When I say run, head for that building with the blue door. That's my office." Tessa nodded, gathering her skirts in one hand, bag in the other. Now, they sprinted across the street, bullets kicking up dust at their heels. Grant fired twice over his shoulder without breaking stride, and a pained yelp suggested he'd found his mark. He ushered her inside the sheriff's office, bolting the door behind them. "Are all newcomers greeted this enthusiastically?" Tessa asked, trying to steady her breathing. "Only the special ones," Grant answered, peering through the window. "Though I suspect this welcome has more to do with your name than anything else." Tessa froze. "My name? What about it?" Grant Galloway set his rifle down and turned to face her fully. He was handsome in a rugged way, with sun-weathered skin and laugh lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, despite his current grave expression. "Miss Daniels, are you related to Judge Harold Daniels of Denver?" "He was my father," she replied cautiously. "He passed away recently." Grant nodded slowly. "I'm sorry for your loss, but I should warn you that name carries weight around here, and not the good kind. Your father sentenced the brother of our town's most influential businessman to hang 3 years ago." "Samuel Blackwell," Tessa whispered. "A stagecoach robber who killed 2 passengers." "Exactly. And his brother, Victor Blackwell, owns half this town, including the saloon where those shots came from." Grant sighed. "Miss Daniels, I'll be direct, you've walked into a hornet's nest. The school board doesn't know your connection, or they never would have hired you." Tessa slumped into a nearby chair. She'd come so far, spent her last dollars on the stagecoach ticket, believing this teaching position would be her fresh start after losing everything in Denver. "What am I to do?" "I have nowhere else to go." Grant studied her thoughtfully. "The town needs a teacher. The children have gone without proper schooling for nearly a year." He paced the small office, thinking, "Perhaps if we don't advertise your connection." "They already know," Tessa said flatly. "The way those men looked at me when I stepped off the coach, someone recognized me." A loud pounding on the door interrupted them. Grant signaled for Tessa to stay quiet as he approached cautiously, hand on his revolver. "Sheriff, open up. Town council wants a word." Grant opened the door to reveal 3 men in varying states of agitation. The oldest, a portly man with a silver watch chain stretched across his vest, pointed an accusing finger at Tessa. "That's her, Harold Daniels' daughter," he sputtered. "She can't teach our children." "Mr. Mayor," Grant began calmly, "Miss Daniels is qualified and was hired in good faith. No Daniels will ever work in this town," another man spat. "Not after what her father did to the Blackwell family." He upheld the law. Tessa stood, her chin raised despite her trembling hands. "Samuel Blackwell murdered innocent people." "Your father had options besides the noose," the third man said. "Victor won't stand for this insult. Gentlemen," Grant's voice hardened as he positioned himself between Tessa and the men. Miss Daniels has a contract. Breaking it without cause would reflect poorly on Silver Creek's reputation. The mayor's face reddened. Then we'll find cause. Meanwhile, she's not welcome here. No one will board her, feed her, or sell to her. The Daniels name is poison in this town. After they left, Tessa sank back into the chair, fighting tears. All her hopes dashed in a single afternoon because of her family name. "They hate my name," she whispered, more to herself than to the sheriff. Grant was quiet for a long moment before he turned to her, determination in his eyes. "Then you'll wear mine instead." Tessa blinked, certain she'd misheard. What? Marry me," he said simply. Tessa laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "Sheriff Galloway, we've only just met. This is absurd." "It's a practical solution," Grant insisted. "As Mrs. Galloway, you could stay and teach. The children need you, and I need a school for this town if we're ever going to grow into something more than a stopping place between real cities." "You're proposing marriage as if it were a business arrangement. In many ways it would be," Grant admitted. "I need a teacher who won't run at the first sign of trouble. You need protection and a name that won't make half the town reach for their guns." He paused, his expression softening. "I'm not asking for anything improper, Miss Daniels. You would have your own room in my house at the edge of town. If after a year you wish to dissolve the arrangement, I'll help you relocate somewhere safe." Tessa stood and paced the small office. "This is madness." "This is the West," Grant countered. "People make unusual arrangements to survive out here. I'm offering you a chance to fulfill your contract and help this town. All I ask in return is that you give Silver Creek a fair chance." She studied his face, searching for deceit or hidden motives, but found only earnestness and perhaps a hint of something warmer in his gaze. "What of your reputation, Sheriff? Won't marrying a Daniels bring you trouble?" Grant smiled slightly. "I've never much cared what Victor Blackwell or his cronies think of me. Besides, I've been sheriff here for 5 years. They know I don't make idle threats and I don't tolerate violence against innocent people." A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the window, Tessa could see a crowd gathering, led by a tall man in an expensive suit. Victor Blackwell, she presumed. "We're running out of time," Grant said quietly. "What's your answer, Miss Daniels?" Tessa looked at the angry faces outside, then back to Grant Galloway's steady gaze. She thought of the children who needed education, of her own desperate situation, and of this stranger offering an impossible solution. "Yes," she whispered, hardly believing her own voice. "Yes, I'll marry you, Sheriff Galloway." Relief washed over his features. "Good. We'll see Reverend Taylor immediately." Within the hour, Tessa Daniels became Mrs. Grant Galloway in the sparsely furnished back room of Silver Creek's small church. The Reverend, a kind-eyed old man who seemed untroubled by the unusual circumstances, kept the ceremony brief. No one else attended. As they exchanged simple vows, Tessa wondered at the strange turn her life had taken. That morning, she'd been an eager schoolteacher hoping for a new beginning. Now, she was a wife in name only to a man she'd known less than 3 hours. When it was done, Grant led her out the side door of the church to avoid the crowd still milling around the main street. They traveled along back alleys until they reached a modest but well-kept house at the town's edge, bordered by a small creek and cottonwood trees. "It's not much," Grant said as he unlocked the door, "but it's quiet, and the view of the mountains at sunset is worth something." The interior was surprisingly comfortable, clean, and arranged with care, though clearly the home of a man living alone. A bookshelf stuffed with volumes caught Tessa's attention immediately. "You're a reader," she observed, running her fingers along the spines. "My mother was a teacher back in Ohio," Grant explained. "She believed education was the only true path to civilization. Said the West would remain wild until we taught our children better." "She sounds wise." She was. His expression grew distant. "She died of fever 5 years ago. My father followed a year later. That's when I came west." Tessa felt a connection forming two people who understood loss, who knew what it meant to start over. Grant showed her to a bedroom at the back of the house. This was meant to be a guest room, though I've never had occasion to use it. I hope it's suitable. The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a chest of drawers, and a window overlooking the creek and distant mountains. It's perfect, Tessa said softly. Thank you, Grant nodded awkwardly. I'll leave you to settle in. I need to return to town and explain our situation. After he left, Tessa sat on the edge of the bed, her mind spinning. She was married legally, officially bound to a stranger who had offered his name as protection against a town's hatred. It was madness, yet she couldn't deny the relief she felt having a safe place to stay. Opening her carpet bag, she removed her few belongings: 2 dresses, undergarments, a hairbrush, and a small photograph of her parents. Beneath these lay her most treasured possession, her father's pocket watch engraved with his initials. He'd carried it through decades on the bench, consulting it before delivering every verdict. Tessa clutched it now, wondering what he would think of her impulsive marriage. I had no choice, Father, she whispered to the empty room, and Sheriff Galloway seems a good man. The next morning, Tessa woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. She dressed quickly in her best dress and pinned her hair in a simple but neat arrangement. Today would be her first day at the schoolhouse, and despite everything, she was determined to make a good impression. In the kitchen, she found Grant already dressed in his sheriff's clothes, cooking breakfast at the cast-iron stove. "Good morning," he said, glancing up. "I hope you slept well." "Better than expected," Tessa admitted. "You didn't need to cook for me." "I was cooking for myself anyway," he replied with a small smile. Seemed rude not to make enough for 2. They ate in companionable silence until Grant cleared his throat. "I explained our marriage to the town council last night. They're not happy, but legally, they can't prevent Mrs. Galloway from teaching their children. And the Blackwells," Grant's expression darkened. "Victor made threats. I reminded him that threatening a lawman's wife carries serious consequences." He paused. "You should be prepared for coldness from some folks. The Blackwells have influence." "I'm no stranger to difficult people," Tessa assured him. "My father's position meant we faced scrutiny and occasionally hostility." "I'll escort you to the schoolhouse today," Grant said, rising from the table. "People should understand from the start that you have my protection." The schoolhouse stood at the far end of town, a simple one-room building with rows of wooden desks. When they arrived, a group of children already waited outside, along with several parents who watched Tessa with suspicious eyes. Grant addressed them directly. "Good morning, folks. I'd like to introduce my wife, Mrs. Tessa Galloway, who will be taking up the teaching position as contracted. I trust you'll all make her welcome." The silence that followed was broken by a young girl who stepped forward with curious eyes. "Are you really the sheriff's wife?" "Pa said the new teacher couldn't come 'cause she had a bad name." "Margaret," her mother hissed, pulling the child back. Tessa knelt to the girl's level. "I'm Mrs. Galloway now, and I'm very happy to be your teacher." "What's your name?" "Margaret Jenkins. I'm 7. "Well, Margaret, would you like to help me ring the school bell for our first day?" The girl nodded eagerly, and together they rang the bell that signaled the start of school. One by one, the children filed inside, curiosity overcoming their parents' reservations. "I'll return at day's end," Grant said quietly. "Be careful." The school day passed better than Tessa had dared hope. She had 22 students ranging from 6 to 16 years of age with varying levels of education. Some could barely write their names, while others demonstrated impressive knowledge of mathematics and literature. By afternoon, Tessa had evaluated each child's abilities and begun organizing a teaching plan. The children, whatever their parents' misgivings, responded to her enthusiasm. Even the oldest boys, who had initially slouched in the back row with defiant expressions, participated in the geography lesson. As promised, Grant arrived when school ended. Some parents waited nearby, watching their interaction closely. "How was your first day, Mrs. Galloway?" he asked, offering his arm as they walked away from the schoolhouse. Challenging but rewarding, she replied, conscious of their audience. The children are bright and eager to learn. They maintained this formal politeness until they were safely home. Once inside, Tessa's composure cracked. It was wonderful, she admitted, eyes shining with genuine excitement. Those children have so much potential. Even with their different ages and abilities, they want to learn. One boy, Thomas, has a remarkable mind for mathematics, and little Margaret asks such thoughtful questions. Grant watched her animated description with a smile. "You're a natural teacher." "It's all I ever wanted to be," Tessa confessed. "Even when my father hoped I'd marry a lawyer or judge, I knew I belonged in a classroom." "And now you have one," Grant said, "though the circumstances are unusual." Tessa's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "Yes, about that we should discuss expectations. This arrangement, our marriage, I want to ensure we both understand the terms." Grant gestured for her to sit at the kitchen table while he stoked the stove to prepare dinner. "I meant what I said yesterday. This is a practical arrangement. You need my name and protection. I want a schoolteacher for Silver Creek." "And personal matters?" Tessa asked delicately, her cheeks coloring. Grant's expression remained respectful. "This is a marriage in name only, unless at some point we both desire otherwise. Your room is yours alone. I won't enter without invitation." Relief flooded through Tessa, followed by something less definable, not disappointment exactly, but a curious wondering about what a real marriage to Grant Galloway might entail. He was handsome, kind, and principled. In different circumstances, she pushed the thought away. "Thank you for your honesty and for everything you've done." "It's what anyone decent would do," Grant replied, though they both knew that wasn't true. Few men would marry a stranger to protect her from a town's prejudice. In the weeks that followed, they settled into a routine. Each morning, Grant would escort Tessa to the schoolhouse before beginning his rounds. They would meet again at day's end, walking home together while Tessa shared stories of her students' progress. At home, they developed an easy companionship. Grant proved to be an excellent cook, having lived alone for years. Tessa contributed by keeping the house in order and mending Grant's clothes. In the evenings, they often read from Grant's extensive library, occasionally discussing the books or sharing anecdotes from their pasts. Gradually, the townsfolk's hostility began to thaw, at least toward Tessa as Mrs. Galloway. The children's enthusiasm for their teacher influenced their parents, and soon Tessa was greeted with nods and occasional smiles from most residents. Victor Blackwell remained the exception. 1 month after Tessa's arrival, he confronted them as they left the general store. "Playing house with a Daniels doesn't change what she is, Sheriff," he sneered. "Her blood is tainted by her father's crimes against my family." Grant stepped forward, but Tessa placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Mr. Blackwell," she said calmly, "I understand your grief over your brother. But Samuel was given a fair trial with ample evidence of his guilt. My father acted according to the law, not personal vendetta." "The law," Blackwell spat. "The law didn't bring my brother back. The law didn't comfort his widow and children." "Neither will harassing me," Tessa replied. "We can live as enemies, Mr. Blackwell, or we can acknowledge that the past cannot be changed and find a way forward." Blackwell's face darkened. "There's no way forward while a Daniels draws breath in my town." He turned to Grant. "And you, Sheriff, will regret the day you pinned that star to your chest. The town council serves at my pleasure. Your position isn't as secure as you think." After he stalked away, Grant sighed heavily. "That man carries hatred like others carry pocket watches, checking it regularly to ensure it's still working." "Will he cause trouble for you with the council?" Tessa asked worriedly. "He can try," Grant shrugged, "but the town's growing. New settlers arrive weekly, people with no connection to the Blackwells. His influence is waning, though he doesn't see it yet." True to Grant's prediction, Silver Creek was changing. A railroad spur line was under construction that would connect the town to the main Union Pacific route, promising economic growth. New businesses opened, bringing families who enrolled their children in Tessa's school. As autumn approached, Tessa and Grant's relationship deepened. What had begun as an arrangement of convenience evolved into genuine friendship. They shared confidences, laughed together, and found increasing comfort in each other's company. On a crisp October evening, as they sat on their small porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in gold and crimson, Grant took Tessa's hand. "I never expected to find such contentment in our arrangement," he admitted softly. Tessa felt warmth spread from their joined hands throughout her body. "Nor did I, Tessa," he began hesitantly. "I know we agreed this was a marriage in name only, but my feelings for you have changed. I find myself wanting more than friendship." Her heart quickened. Over these months, she too had recognized her growing attraction to Grant. His integrity, gentleness, and quiet strength had become increasingly dear to her. "I feel the same," she whispered. Grant's eyes darkened with emotion as he leaned closer. Their first kiss was tentative, a question rather than a demand. When Tessa responded, Grant deepened the kiss, his hand coming up to cradle her face. When they finally parted, both were breathless. "I believe I'm falling in love with my wife," Grant murmured against her hair. Tessa laughed softly. What a scandalous development. That night, Tessa invited Grant into her room, and their marriage was consummated with tenderness and growing passion. Afterward, lying in each other's arms, Tessa marveled at how a marriage begun as protection had transformed into something so meaningful. Their newfound happiness faced its first serious test the following week. Tessa was walking home alone from school. Grant had been called to handle a dispute at the livery stable when Victor Blackwell's carriage pulled alongside her. "Get in, Mrs. Galloway," he commanded, a pistol resting casually on his knee. "We have unfinished business." Tessa glanced around, but the street was deserted. "I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Blackwell." "Then you can listen." He cocked the pistol. "Get in, or I'll put a bullet through you right here." Seeing no alternative, Tessa climbed into the carriage. Blackwell directed his driver toward the outskirts of town. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Somewhere we can have a private conversation about justice," Blackwell replied coldly. "Your husband isn't the only one who can arrange marriages. My niece Samuel's daughter is of marriageable age now, 16. No father to walk her down the aisle because of Judge Daniels." The carriage stopped at an abandoned cabin several miles outside town. Blackwell forced Tessa inside, binding her to a chair. "What do you intend to do?" Tessa asked, struggling against the ropes. "Send a message," Blackwell said simply. "By the time your husband finds you, you'll understand what real loss feels like." He left her alone in the cabin, locking the door behind him. Through the window, Tessa watched his carriage disappear back toward town. Hours passed. Tessa worked desperately at her bonds, managing only to bloody her wrists. As darkness fell, she heard hoofbeats approaching. The door burst open to reveal Grant, his face ashen with worry. "Tessa," he rushed to untie her. "Are you hurt?" "No," she assured him as he freed her hands. "But Grant, Blackwell, I know," he cut her off grimly. "He came to my office, told me where to find you, said this was just a warning." Grant helped her onto his horse and they rode double back to town. The main street was unusually crowded despite the late hour. "What's happening?" Tessa asked. "Blackwell called a town meeting," Grant explained tersely. "He's making his move against me." In the town hall, Victor Blackwell stood before the gathered citizens. "Sheriff Galloway has endangered this town by bringing Judge Daniels' daughter among us," he proclaimed as they entered. "Today proves my point. Trouble follows the Daniels name." "You created this trouble yourself, Blackwell," Grant's voice rang out as he strode forward, Tessa at his side. "Kidnapping my wife was a poor decision." "Kidnapping," Blackwell laughed. "Mrs. Galloway came willingly for a discussion about her father's injustice to my family." "That's a lie," Tessa declared, addressing the crowd directly. "Mr. Blackwell threatened me at gunpoint and tied me to a chair in an abandoned cabin. Is this the behavior of a man you want influencing your town?" Murmurs spread through the gathering. Many of these people had come to know Tessa as their children's dedicated teacher. They'd seen her work tirelessly to improve the school, organize community events, and help wherever needed. Mayor Fleming stepped forward. "Victor, is this true? Did you abduct Mrs. Galloway?" "I merely arranged a private conversation," Blackwell insisted, though his confidence wavered at the crowd's changing mood. "With a gun and ropes," Grant challenged. "That's not conversation, that's criminal." "You all know what the Daniels name represents," Blackwell shouted desperately. "Her father destroyed my family," an unexpected voice spoke from the crowd. A slender young woman with Blackwell features stepped forward. "Uncle, this must stop," she said firmly. "I'm tired of our family name being used to justify hatred." "Catherine, be silent," Blackwell ordered. "This doesn't concern you, doesn't it? You claim to act on behalf of my father, but I never wanted this." The young woman turned to Tessa. "Mrs. Galloway, I apologize for my uncle's actions. My father made his own choices. Judge Daniels merely enforced the law." A stunned silence followed this pronouncement. Victor Blackwell's face contorted with fury. "Traitor," he snarled, drawing his pistol and aiming at his niece. Grant moved with lightning speed, tackling Blackwell as the gun discharged. The bullets struck the ceiling as they crashed to the floor. Several men rushed to help the sheriff subdue Blackwell, who fought and cursed wildly. "Lock him in the jail," Grant ordered once Blackwell was restrained. "He'll stand trial for kidnapping and attempted murder." As Blackwell was dragged away, the atmosphere in the town hall transformed. People surrounded Tessa, expressing concern and outrage at her treatment. The mayor publicly apologized for the council's initial hostility. "You've proven yourself a valuable member of our community, Mrs. Galloway," he said earnestly. "I hope you can forgive our past behavior." Later that night, as Tessa and Grant finally returned home, exhaustion overtook them both. They sat before the fireplace, holding each other close. "I thought I'd lost you today," Grant whispered against her hair. "When Blackwell came to my office, smirking about leaving you tied up miles from town, I've never known such fear." "But you found me," Tessa reminded him, touching his face tenderly. "You always will." "I love you, Tessa," Grant said, meeting her eyes. "Not because of our arrangement or convenience, but because knowing you has changed me. You're the bravest, kindest person I've ever met." "I love you too," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. "When I arrived here, I thought my name would be my downfall. Instead, it led me to you." Grant smiled. "You said they hated your name, and you said I'd wear yours instead," Tessa finished. "I never imagined how much that would come to mean to me." Spring arrived with transformation. Victor Blackwell was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in territorial prison. His businesses were purchased by investors from the railroad company, forever breaking the Blackwell monopoly on Silver Creek's economy. The school thrived under Tessa's guidance. With the town's growth, plans were approved for a larger schoolhouse with separate classrooms for different age groups. Tessa would serve as headmistress, with 2 assistant teachers hired from Denver. On the 1-year anniversary of their hasty wedding, Grant surprised Tessa with a proper gold band to replace the simple ring he'd initially provided. "I thought we might renew our vows," he suggested. "This time not out of necessity, but because we choose each other freely and completely." Tessa accepted joyfully. Their second wedding was everything the first was not, celebrated by the entire town with flowers, music, and genuine well-wishes. That evening, as they danced at their reception in the town hall, Catherine Blackwell approached them. "Mrs. Galloway," she said hesitantly, "I wanted to thank you for not holding my family's actions against me. The teaching position you offered means everything to me." "You earned it through your own merit," Tessa assured her. "And please call me Tessa, we're colleagues now." As Catherine moved away, Grant pulled Tessa closer. "You continue to amaze me, Mrs. Galloway. Hiring Samuel Blackwell's daughter as your assistant teacher shows remarkable forgiveness." "Or practical thinking," Tessa smiled. "She's educated, intelligent, and needs a chance to define herself beyond her family name. I understand that better than most," Grant chuckled. "Indeed you do." His expression grew serious. "I have news from the doctor." Tessa's eyes widened. "Already?" "I only visited him yesterday. He's confident," Grant confirmed, his voice husky with emotion. "We'll welcome our child before winter." Joy suffused Tessa's face as she pressed Grant's hand to her still flat stomach. From strangers to parents in less than 2 years, life takes unexpected turns. "The best kind," Grant agreed, kissing her tenderly. "I never imagined when I offered you my name that you would give my life such meaning." As twilight settled over Silver Creek, Tessa Galloway gazed at her husband with love that had grown from the most unlikely beginning. A hated name had led her to the man who offered his own in its place, and in doing so, had given her not just protection but a future filled with love, purpose, and belonging. When their son was born that November, a robust, healthy boy they named Harold Grant Galloway, the entire town celebrated. Judge Daniels' legacy, once reviled in Silver Creek, was now honored through his grandson, who would grow up in a community that had learned the value of forgiveness and second chances. And each night, as Tessa and Grant held each other close in the home they'd made together, they marveled at how two names had become one, and how love had transformed a marriage of convenience into the greatest blessing of their lives.